The smell of burnt coffee and frying bacon clung to the air in Rosie's Diner, a tiny place off Forgotten Highway in upstate New York. The neon sign outside flickered like a tired heartbeat, and inside, the hum of conversation mixed with the low murmur of an old jukebox. In the corner booth sat James Thornton, a man whose name was printed on skyscrapers and charity plaques. But tonight, he was just another lost soul in a booth for one. At 52, James was a billionaire who had everything once. Except now, he couldn't remember what everything had ever felt like. His wife, Claire, had been gone 3 years. A car accident had taken her laughter, her light, her presence, and left behind a house too big, too quiet. He'd traded his empire for solitude, wandering small towns where no one cared who he was, hoping maybe silence could heal what success never could. He sat staring into his coffee, black and cold. The silver ring on his right hand caught the light. Claire's ring, the twin of the one he'd given her when they were young and broke, when love still felt infinite. The etched ivy pattern had symbolized their promise to grow together, no matter what. He twisted it absently, unaware that the night was about to change everything. Across the diner, Emily Harper moved between tables with practiced efficiency. At 28, she was exhausted, the kind of tired that didn't fade with sleep. Her brown hair was tied back, her apron smudged with grease, her smile small but kind. She worked 2 jobs to keep a leaking roof over her and her daughters' heads. Once, she'd worn an army uniform. Now, she wore an apron and a chain around her neck, for which hung a small silver ring, her mother's ring. The only thing she left of Mary Harper, the woman she loved fiercely and lost too soon, to addiction, to life's cruel turns. When Emily approached James's booth to refill his cup, she didn't notice the weight in his eyes. She just smiled politely and said, "Hi, sir. My mother has a ring just like yours." James froze. The mug trembled in his hand. His gaze dropped the ring. "What did you say?" Emily blinked. "Your ring," she said, gesturing toward it. "It's just like my mom's. She used to wear it all the time. Said it was from someone special." The words hit him like a punch. The same ivy-etched band. The same delicate curve. It couldn't be coincidence. Not that pattern. Not that story. He swallowed hard. "Your mother, what was her name?" "Mary," Emily said softly. "Mary Harper." James's breath caught. The name ripped open a sealed vault in his mind. Mary Harper, Claire's best friend, her shadow through youth. The one who'd stood beside them at their wedding. The one Claire had tried to save when addiction took hold. The one who'd vanished decades ago. He barely made it back to his hotel that night. Sleep wouldn't come. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ring on his hand. Claire's ring, Mary's twin. His memories played in cruel, vivid loops. 3 young dreamers growing up together, promising the world to each other. Mary had been wild and radiant once, a girl who could turn any moment into laughter. Claire had adored her like a sister. But Mary's world had spiraled. Poverty, bad choices, and addiction had consumed her. James remembered the last time he'd seen her. At his and Claire's wedding, her smile trembling but bright. She'd hugged Claire and handed her a small box. Inside had been the twin of Claire's ring, the one James now wore. "So you'll always have me with you," Mary had said. After that, life had taken them all in different directions. Claire had tried to help, sending money, paying for rehab, calling until the line went dead. Mary disappeared, and Claire had carried the guilt like a scar. When she died, that guilt died with her, or so James thought. Until now. The next evening, James went back to Rosie's. He told himself it was just for the coffee, but deep down, he knew better. Emily was there, tired but smiling as she wiped down tables. "Back again?" she asked lightly. "Couldn't stay away," he said, offering a half-smile. "That ring you mentioned, it's been on my mind." Emily touched the chain at her neck. "It's all I have left of her," she said softly. "She wasn't perfect, but she was my mom." James nodded, his voice rough. "Tell me about her." And she did. She told him how Mary had once been a singer, her voice bright and raw, before life stole it away. How she tried to stay clean for Emily, but always slipped back. How? When Emily was 16, she'd come home to an empty apartment. Her mother gone, leaving only a note. I'm sorry, Em. Keep this safe. The ring had been beside it. Emily had joined the army, chasing structure where chaos had been, only to return years later to the same small town, a daughter of her own, and the same ache. James listened, really listened, and something inside him broke and mended all at once. He saw in Emily the resilience of both Mary and Claire, two women who had loved deeply, fought hard, and lost too much. But there was something else, a suspicion, a question gnawing at him. The timing, the rings, the past. It couldn't all be coincidence. He started visiting Rosie's every evening, sitting in the same booth. He and Emily talked, not about money or fame, but about life, love, and loss. She told him about her daughter, Lily, 3 years old, a burst of light in her weary world. He told her about Claire, how success had never filled the space she left behind. But always, the ring lingered between them, a silent question neither could name. One night, when the diner was nearly empty, James finally asked, Emily, when was your mother born? She blinked, caught off guard. 1968. Why? James did the math. Mary, born 1968. Emily, 1997. Claire, married to him in 1995. His pulse quickened. The timeline didn't add up. He remembered Claire crying one night after a late call from Mary, whispering, I failed her, but refusing to say more. He hesitated. Did your mother ever mention a woman named Claire Thornton? Emily frowned, thinking. Yeah, she talked about her sometimes. Said they were best friends, like sisters. She always got sad when she mentioned her. James's chest tightened. He pulled out his phone, found a photo of Claire, young, laughing, the ivy ring glinting on her hand, and turned the screen toward Emily. Her breath caught. That's her. That's Claire. The truth was pressing closer now, like the final piece of a puzzle snapping into place. James hired a private investigator. Discreet, efficient. Within days, the man returned with a folder, one that would shatter James's world and rebuild it in an instant. Inside was Mary's birth record, Emily's, and a letter dated in 1996. I'm pregnant, Claire. It's his. I can't tell him. He's married to you now. I'm sorry. James's hands trembled. His breath caught on the edge of the paper. Claire had known. Mary had been pregnant with his child, and Claire had never told him. He stared at the letter for hours, rage and grief twisting together. Claire's silence, Mary's disappearance, his own blindness. Emily, his daughter, had lived her entire life never knowing who her father was. He didn't go to Rosie's the next day, or the day after. He couldn't, but by the third night, he couldn't stay away. When he walked in, the diner was nearly empty. Emily looked up, startled, relief and worry flickering in her eyes. You okay? She asked. James swallowed hard. Emily, we need to talk. They sat across from each other, the hum of the neon sign filling the silence. And then he told her everything about the letter, the truth, the mistake, the secret Claire had kept. Emily stared at him, pale and still. You're saying you're my father? James nodded. I didn't know. I swear to you I didn't. She stood abruptly, tears glinting in her eyes. I can't. I need time. And she walked out into the night, leaving James alone in the booth, his heart hollowed and raw. He didn't follow her. Some truths had to breathe before they could heal. Days passed in slow, aching silence. The world outside moved on. Trucks rumbling past the diner, snow falling softly against fog windows. But for James Thornton, time had stopped. He still came to Rosie's every day, sitting in the same corner booth. He didn't speak much, didn't ask for more than coffee. He just sat there, hoping. Sometimes Emily would glance his way, her eyes unreadable. She didn't quit her job, but the distance between them was heavy, a fragile silence filled with things neither knew how to say. He didn't blame her. How could he? She'd spent her life without a father, without answers. Now the truth had landed like a storm, rewriting everything she thought she knew. But James couldn't give up. He'd already lost Claire, lost years he could never reclaim. He couldn't lose this too. One evening, as the first real snow of winter powdered the world white, Emily approached his table. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed a mug before him, but her voice was steady. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "about my mom, about Claire, about you." James looked up slowly, meeting her gaze. There was pain there, but also resolve. "I'm angry," she admitted, her eyes glistening. "So angry at everything. The lies, the silence, all the things that got taken from me. But I don't want to stay angry anymore." James's throat tightened. "What do you want, Emily?" She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I want to know you, not the billionaire everyone talks about. Just you. And I want you to know Lily. She deserves a grandfather." For a long moment, James couldn't speak. His chest ached with something too big to name. Relief, love, guilt, gratitude, all tangled together. He nodded, voice breaking. "I'd like that, more than anything." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something better, a beginning. In the weeks that followed, the quiet routine of the diner transformed. The space between James and Emily filled slowly with cautious words and small gestures, a shared laugh here, a memory there. He learned how she liked her coffee, 2 sugars, no cream, how she worked double shifts just to pay daycare, how she'd enlisted in the army not out of patriotism, but survival. And Emily learned about him, about Claire, about the way grief had hollowed him out and left him searching for meaning in small-town diners. Then came the day she brought Lily. The little girl bounded into the diner like sunlight, curls bouncing, a crayon clutched in her fist. She looked up at James with the same deep hazel eyes that once belonged to Claire. "Hi," she chirped. "Mom says you like coffee." James laughed, a sound that felt strange and wonderful after so long. "I do," he said softly, "but I think I might like you more." From that moment, something shifted. He wasn't just the lonely man in the booth anymore. He was Grandpa, the one Lily ran to with drawings, the one who read her stories in the corner of the diner while Emily worked, the one who found, in that little girl's laughter, the forgiveness he hadn't dared to ask for. Over time, James and Emily began to rebuild what had been broken before it ever had a chance to exist. It wasn't simple. Healing never is. There were nights Emily cried, missing the mother she wished could see this. There were moments James blamed himself for every lost year. But there was also growth. James used his influence to fund a community center in Mary Harper's name, a safe place for people battling addiction, a space of hope rather than judgment. When he unveiled the plaque reading the Mary Harper Foundation for Recovery, Emily stood beside him, her hand resting on Lily's shoulder. "She'd have liked this," Emily said quietly. "I hope so," James replied. "She gave me something I never knew I was missing." Emily smiled faintly. "Family?" He nodded. "Exactly." As months turned into a year, the wounds began to scar over. Emily started taking night classes, chasing a long-abandoned dream of becoming a nurse. James supported her, not as a billionaire throwing money, but as a father finally doing what he should have all along. Sometimes, when the weight it all felt too much, they'd sit together after closing time, sipping coffee from chipped mugs and talking about the people who weren't there. About Claire, the woman who had loved them both enough to protect them from the truth, even if it meant breaking her own heart. About Mary, the friend who'd made mistakes but left behind a piece of herself that still carried her light. They spoke not with bitterness, but with gratitude, because somehow, out of all the loss and lies, love had found its way back. One snowy evening, exactly a year after their first conversation, James sat again in the corner booth at Rosie's. But this time, he wasn't alone. Emily sat across from him, her hair loose around her shoulders, a tired but content smile on her face. Lily sat between them, scribbling furiously with crayons, her tongue poking out in concentration. She held up her drawing proudly, a house with a big tree and 3 stick figures holding hands. "That's you, Grandpa," she said. James laughed softly. "I love it." The silver rings, his and Emily's, glinted under the warm diner lights. Once symbols of grief and secrets, now they were reminders of everything they'd survived. Outside, snow drifted against the windows. Inside, the jukebox played a soft, familiar tune. For the first time in years, James felt peace. The empire he'd built, the wealth he'd chased, the pain he'd carried, none of it mattered as much as this moment. This, the laughter of a little girl, the quiet strength of a daughter he'd just begun to know, was what Claire would have wanted for him. Not regret, not isolation, but redemption. He reached across the table, his hand covering Emily's. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" she asked. "For giving me a second chance." Emily's eyes softened. "You gave me one, too." As Lily giggled beside them, coloring a sun above her stick-figure family, James looked around the diner. The same chipped mugs, the same flickering sign, the same hum of life. Everything was the same. And yet, everything had changed. The rings had brought them pain once. But now, they were proof that even the deepest wounds could heal, that even broken families could find their way back to one another. And as the snow fell gently outside, James smiled. A man who'd finally found what money could never buy: forgiveness, belonging, and love reborn over a cup of diner coffee.